Hi everyone, it's Emily, and today I'll be sharing all of my pickups and the games I played in May. So I'm still trying to figure out how I want to go about these monthly wrap-up videos, so please bear with me. So a majority of my pickups I've already shared in haul videos kind of throughout last month, so I'm just going to go briefly through all of those and then also share a few additional games that I picked up. So at the beginning of last month, I picked up 4 brand new sealed copies of various 3DS games from Video Games Plus. So the first one was Metroid: Samus Returns. This game is a remaster of one of the classic Metroid games, Metroid 2: Return of Samus. I thought this would be a great introductory point to the Metroid series, especially because I have been eyeing Metroid Dread that I've heard nothing but good things about. So I wanted to give this one a shot before going with the new Switch game. And I also picked up this dungeon crawler, Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey Redux with 3DS, and I've been trying to just snatch up all the Atlas games on the 3DS, and I've been really getting into the S&T games actually. So this sounds like a really interesting sci-fi kind of frozen world environment. I really like this S&T universe's art, and I'm seeing a lot of familiar characters just on the back cover alone here from the Devil Survivor games I've been playing. And then from that haul, I also picked up more Atlas games from the Etrian Odyssey series, which are first-person dungeon crawlers with sort of this map-making mechanic that I just find really interesting. I've been told that starting with the 4th entry is a really good starting point for the series. So I'm gonna put the 2nd game as well as this 5th game on hold for a bit. But I wanted to grab these while they're still reasonably priced. And then the last 3DS game that I picked up was in a PNP Games haul that I shared not too long ago. And these were all used games. And so I picked up Kirby Triple Deluxe here. And just like what I've been doing with all the Atlas titles on the 3DS, I've been trying to pick up more first-party Nintendo games before they become a bit more impossible to find. And one of the things that I think Nintendo does really well with their first-party 2D platformers is they're just really easy to pick up and put down. So you can play them in short spurts if you choose to, and it's just a really nice sort of experience to have in between games. And one of the reasons why I made that PNP Used Games haul was to get a hold of Kid Icarus Uprising. So I mentioned in that haul video that I wasn't expecting for this copy to have the original cardboard box and stand and also be a world edition. So it was sort of a mixed bag when it came to that haul, but nevertheless I'm really interested to try this game because I haven't had too much exposure with rail shooters. I heard that there is a learning curve, so hopefully I'll be able to adapt to that fairly quickly. But yeah, this is one of the first party Nintendo titles that I just hear continual praise about, so I wanted to give it a try, especially if Nintendo ever decides to revive the series again. And one of the things I started doing last month was picking up more of the original Nintendo DS games. And some of the first ones I picked up were these Layton series. So I'm still trying to get my hands on Professor Layton and the Curious Village. I'm hoping to do that soon since most of those are pretty reasonably priced at the moment. But from what I understand, it's best to go through this game chronologically. And so I do plan on doing that just to sort of see how this franchise evolves over time. And then the other game I picked up was Steins Gate on the PS Vita. I've been trying to just fill out my PS Vita visual novel catalog. And I mentioned in my haul video how much I really enjoyed the Steins Gate anime. And I've heard out of most of the animes that have a visual novel tie-in to it, either it came before or after, Steins Gate is supposed to be one of the best. So I haven't done too much research into this, but there are other Steins Gate games. I'm not really sure what the recommended order to play them is. I imagine this is the first one. And then there's a Steins Gate Zero that's also on the Vita. And I think the Switch has the Elite version. So if you happen to know which order to play these games in, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm probably going to buy them all eventually and just see sort of how these alternative routes or however they kind of piece together these games work. All right, so we're almost through with the summary of games I've already shared on this channel, but in a recent video, I did share that I picked up the reprints of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 as well as the Torna game. And in that video, I did share how These are going to be more readily available now that stores can request reprints of Nintendo published games. So be on the lookout for more stores carrying these in stock. I think especially as we get closer to Xenoblade Chronicles 3 coming out. And also a quick update on the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 game. I mentioned how this was a first print run because of the serial number on the back, but I also had someone reach out to me on the comment section saying that this cart was also updated to the latest patch version because it has a 006 on the back side of the cart. So apparently updates to the game cart is independent of the print release run, which I find interesting. But nevertheless, if anyone was looking for an updated cart for Xenoblade Chronicles 2, even though you might get a first print run game case, game cart may be updated to the most recent version. And the last game that I picked up that I did an unboxing for was Phaenotopia Awakening. So I picked this up from Premium Edition Games, who are similar to Limited Run in that they carry a few indie titles with a limited stock of physical releases. In my unboxing, I basically gave this game a glowing review because I just saw the slipcover and how they handled the manual and all those aspects were really well done. And they are offering a second chance sale. I don't know for how long, but during that second chance sale, I did pick up Cathedral, which was during the same series wave as Phaenotopia Awakening. It's a Metroidvania with some nice pixel art that I've heard good things about, and I saw some other unboxings of that game, so I decided to pick that up while it was still available. So in addition to all those games I just mentioned, I did pick up 3 more games this past month. The first was a Switch game, Monster Hunter Stories 2, Wings of Ruin. I do have the 3DS version of this game, and this is in the Monster Hunter universe, but it plays more like Pokemon in that there's this monster catching sort of mechanism. And I've heard really good things about this. I bought this because there was a price drop. I think it went down to $30, and I had some gift cards and points I wanted to use to finally add this one to my collection. And then I also picked up another DS title, The World Ends With You. This does have a Switch remake, but I've heard that the original DS version is the way to go because of how the Switch remake made the combat system sort of awkward. And I've heard that this game was really just developed for the 2-screen stylus sort of combat system. And during last month's wrap up, I did share that I bought the sequel to this game, so I'm excited to play this first one. And then the last pickup I have is for the PS Vita, and that is Persona 4 Golden. And this is sort of the go-to JRPG for the PS Vita system, so of course I had to scour and find this for a good price, which I'm happy I did. And I haven't had too much exposure with the Persona series. I dabbled a little bit in Persona 5, but I didn't get super far. So my plan is to actually play Persona 4 Golden before I move on to Persona 5 Royal. So I'm really excited to play this one, and this is my first JRPG physical game for the PS Vita. So far I've mostly just picked up visual novels because the price on those are not as bad as what a lot of the JRPG games that I want are going for. I realized that I forgot to grab this game, so there's technically a 4th game that I haven't shared on this channel yet, and that is Yakuza Like a Dragon. So I ended up getting the Steelbook version as well as the Best Buy Steelbook version because they had I think a $20 special that included both of these. And I've been meaning to get into the Yakuza series because I've heard the storylines and the character development are just really good in the series, as well as the combat system. So from what I understand, Like a Dragon did change up the formula quite a bit in the series, and that it was emulating more of the classic turn-based system. And there's also a ton of references to Dragon Quest, which is, I believe, the main character's beloved game franchise. And so I just thought the concept was really cool. And I've heard some people say that this is the best in the series. I do have a number of games for the PS4, but it's only been recently that I've actually had access to play them. Before I just was a little bit off and on borrowed systems. I haven't decided when to post a collection video for the PS4 because I really don't have that many games compared to my other collections. But I think it would be fun to explore that more, and now that we're transitioning more into the PS5, there's been a lot of price drops on PS4 games that I've been interested in. All right, so those were all the games that I picked up in May. I'm going to now transition to what games I played in May. For my April wrap up, I did mention how I started the prologue to 13 Sentinels Ages Rim, and last month I did finish it. I think it took me about 35 hours, so it's not a super long game. I can speak more now on my experience. So I think there's a little bit of confusion when it comes to this game. Firstly, it is a visual novel, but it does have some real-time strategy or tower defense mechanics that you do on the side to progress the visual novel story. I'm not going to go too much into the plot when talking about this game because I feel like you have to go in a little bit blind. Just know that there's some sort of cool sci-fi time travel aspect to it that I thought was really well done, especially how everything came together at the end. So it's very much an experience game, I would say. There weren't a lot of choices where you would go on different routes, which is the formula I would say most visual novels follow. It was more of a linear story, though you could kind of puzzle it together as you see fit. So how I ended up playing this was I sort of immediately rushed into the visual novel aspect of the game. And so I finished all those up before you reach sort of the point where you have to go over to the real-time strategy aspect in order to unlock the rest of the story. Looking back at this, I kind of wish that I mixed it up a little bit. So if you are planning to play this game, I do recommend that you don't hyper-focus just on the visual novel aspect and try to stagger it a bit, because some of the real-time strategy parts of the game were a little bit repetitive. Each wave they would introduce different sort of things to fight, which was refreshing, but unlike a lot of strategy games, there's not really a change in environment at all. So a lot of it did feel a little bit repetitive. And I think the other downside of also kind of uneven playing is if you play a lot of the visual novel, you rack up a lot of points that you could use in the combat system to level up your characters. And so in doing that, I found that I was a little bit overpowered for most of the game. It was very easy to get the S clears on normal difficulty. So in that way, I found the game a little bit unbalanced in how I played it. So if I were to go back, I would have tried to stagger it more. But overall, I thought this game was excellent, especially the visual novel portion. Even though there wasn't really choices to make, and you had a little bit of a sort of Groundhog's Day if you don't get the sequences right to progress to the next part of the story. I thought kind of how they did the 2D side-scroller art style mixed with the visual novel was really refreshing, since you don't usually see that, especially in visual novels nowadays. One of the things I tried to change up this month was to sort of cycle through games instead of hyper-focus on one game at a time. So this month I did sort of hyper-focus on 13 Sentinels because I enjoyed the story so much. I wanted to see it through the end as quickly as possible. But when I was playing these other 4 games I'll mention, I did try to pace them out a little bit. So I was doing that sort of as an experiment for last month, and I don't think it was really my favorite way to play games. Maybe switching between 2, max of 3 games at a time might work for me, but yeah. And because I've been on a bit of a visual novel kick, I did play this Utomi novel, Psychedelic of the Black Butterfly, and I have finished most of the routes in this game. I've done the common route and a few of the character-specific routes. There's just, I think, 2 more I need to do in order to finish through everything. So when it comes to genre, I would describe this as maybe a gothic horror light, in that there's sort of a very dark and mysterious atmosphere throughout the game because you don't really know what's going on for most of it. I won't get into spoilers, but in the beginning of the game, the female protagonist finds herself in some sort of mysterious manner, and she has amnesia, of course, like so many tropes. And there are these dark monsters throughout this manor that are trying to kill her, as well as some other companions she meets that are also suffering from amnesia. And so there's a bit of a mystery to this game of how everyone ended up in the manor and trying to rebuild their memories to understand what's going on. And sort of similar to 13 Sentinels, there's not a lot of choices that you do throughout this game. I would say there's maybe 5 choices, and that sort of dictates what route you go in the game. But most of the game is just very text heavy, which is fine for me. They do change things up a little bit in that there's a shooting minigame where you have to use the touchscreen to shoot butterflies. And that's how you rack up points to unlock certain scenes and memories. I did really enjoy the dark atmosphere of this game, and I think overall the story was really interesting. There was a lot of plot twists that I didn't see coming, and the character art was beautiful too. So if that's something you're into, I definitely do recommend you check out this game. So on the Switch, I've been playing Crosscode here. So this is a top-down game that does have some The Legend of Zelda inspirations to it because of how it's more of an adventure game with puzzle elements and things like that. I did find the combat to be a little bit awkward, especially in the shooting phases, because of how you have to angle the analog stick while pulling the trigger. So it's not super intuitive to me at this point. I'm hoping to get a little bit better. I'm still a little confused about the story. I'm not super far into it, but it does kind of remind me of like an isekai anime in that kind of transported into like this video game sort of universe. That's sort of the vibes I'm getting from it so far. But yeah, hoping to explore more of this. I haven't played as much of this compared to the other games I've been rotating, but I'm hoping to get a better grasp of the controls and that the story will suck me in a bit more. For the 3DS, I've been playing a bit more of the Devil Survivor 2 games for Record Breaker. I haven't gotten too far in this, but it does feel like an upgrade from the first game when it comes to graphics and sort of how they cleaned up a bit of the mechanics. For example, in the auction system, they made it a bit more complicated, but I think in a good way, in that it felt like you're actually in an auction. Before, you kind of just did a high bid and see how it goes. In the new game, you can kind of see how the other people are bidding with the little emojis they put up there to get a feel if they're going to be low bidding or high bidding. So it's a little bit more complicated, but I think it's an interesting progression of how they decided to enhance that part of the game. So my plan is to actually finish this game up this month, so I'll talk more about it. So look forward to that. And then finally, I have been revisiting Trails of Cold Steel 2 here. I did play the Vita version, but I wanted to play the remastered version on the PS4. I've been meaning to replay some of the Trails games on different platforms because Trails from Zero is coming out this summer. One of the nice things about the PS4 versions is they do come with really awesome steelbooks. This is the one for the second game. And I did pre-order Trails from Zero for the PS4 just so that all of my steelbooks be the same size. So yeah, I'm not super far into this game. I'm about 10 hours in, and this game isn't as long as the first game, but I have been going through it with a walkthrough just to make sure I'm not missing any of these secret hidden quests and things like that. So it's been fun revisiting this game, and also just kind of seeing the little changes they did with the remaster. If you saw my April wrap up, I do have a couple games that I started in April, but I haven't really played much in May at all, mostly because I was trying to play on different systems. So one of those games was Torna for the Switch, and I held off on this game mostly because I was waiting for the North American edition to arrive, and I sold off my Japanese version. Rune Factory 5 is another game that I started in March, April, but I didn't play so much in May. And in part, that's because I was trying to focus on other systems other than the Switch to play different games. And I think that one kind of fell through the cracks because I haven't really become invested in that game yet. I didn't get super far into it, and it was one of my most anticipated games for the year. I don't know if this happens with you guys too, but for me, sometimes some games I'm just highly anticipating. I build it up so much that I'm afraid to start them or fully commit to them just because I'm worried that they might not live up to my expectations. So I think that's sort of what's happening with me in Rune Factory 5. But I do want to get back into it, and I'm hoping that it wins me over. All right, so that concludes May's wrap-up video. I did talk about a lot of games in this video, so hopefully this was interesting, even though there was a bit of overlap with content I've already released on this channel. Let me know what your May highlights were. Did you pick up any of the new games that came out? There are a few that I was eyeing, but I do try to be patient when picking up games and try to get them on sale. And I will try to do another one of these wrap-up videos for next month. So until then, bye guys.